The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Welcome to it, Friday edition, Hail Varsity Radio. We're powered by Cornhead Lager. I'm courtside here at PBA. The semifinals of girls state basketball going on here. Elkhorn North and Beatrice, about 3:29 left in this third quarter. Elkhorn North has surged forward with an and one opportunity. 36-24. Elijah Herbel back in studio. He'll join me here tonight for the semifinal in Class A, Bellevue West and Lincoln Southwest. Connor Clark is in his posh apartment with that Chicago flag. Again, death taxes and Chicagoans with the Chicago flag behind their iPhone camera with the backdrop. Numbers to get in, 489-1240. Connor will have the 6 o'clock ball game tonight with Millard West and Lincoln North Star. 489-1240. Numbers to get in, 800-825-5865. We'll get the starting five. And our shout-outs on the Hail Varsity YouTube stream. Subscribe and like Hail Varsity YouTube channel. And also follow on the Hail Varsity Radio Twitter feed. So a large contingent here from Beatrice behind us, or behind me, and the Elkhorn North faithful in their Carolina blue across the way. Fellas, how we feeling? How's your Friday going? We have a lot to discuss. All things basketball. We'll sneak in a few rule changes football-wise. And let's get you the guest list for the Friday edition of Hail Varsity. Tim Barada, head coach of Lincoln Southwest. Big-time matchup. Southwest has been incredible when it comes to a top-tier program in girls basketball. Coach Barada with us in about 15 minutes or so. We'll corral Jacob Padilla from Hail Varsity and Hurrdat. He is down here on Media Row. We'll check in with Jacob, get his take on girls basketball. Creighton Marquette tomorrow, Nebraska, as they wind down the home schedule Sunday against Rutgers. So Jacob Padilla with us this hour. Pride of Fairbury's Bill Doleman, NBC Sports, the professor. He'll join us at 5. And then Clauseborne in the Friday forecast, some NCAA games to pick and go through this weekend. Some big-time matchups. So back to the original question as we got the housekeeping out of the way. Elijah, you good? Connor, you doing all right, fellas?
I'm wondering here, how much did Connor pay Scott before the show to drop this comment? Scott says, Connor has a bright future in radio. He's got one of the best voices I've heard, plus great delivery.
Both are true.
Both are very true, but how much is Connor paying him to leave this comment?
Hey, Scott, I left the Venmo privately on purpose, okay? So keep it under wrap.
See, us old folks
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Checks in the mail, but nope. Connor's like, no, the Venmo's taken care of. I love it. Let's get the starting five. A shout-out as Tim checks in, an unhappy first on the board. Tim, we're happy you're in, but we understand your misery with the loss to Ohio State as a Nebraska basketball fan. Weston checking in from West Point. Mike Corrigan is doing the old all right. Matthew McConaughey. Woodard from, is it Woodard or Wooderson? Might have been Wooderson from Dazed and Confused. NU Grandpa is here. Andrew checks in. Tuck says present. Roger is in. Eric Fear also saying what's up. He was all ready to check in with us from Charleston and Nebraska baseball. Mother Nature giving Husker baseball fans the middle finger today. Game canceled. Won't be made up. Big Red will play tomorrow against the College of Charleston. And then Brandon winds us down. He's checking in from Kentucky Lake the next 10 days. So good for you, Brandon. A little lake time is all good. Ty, all the way from Scotts Bluff. And Moonbot, howdy nerds.
Let's give one more. Didn't get in the starting five, but he's asked for it. He was here early. Mark chimes in and says, looking for that shout-out. Mark, here is your shout-out. A little late on the starting five, maybe an honorary member of the starting five, member of the rotation at least.
Well, we'll get to more of your comments. You want to open up a question, comment, a Friday fun topic, you're welcome to do it. The Hail Varsity YouTube channel. We can also talk some ball. We'll get to Nebraska, Ohio State in a second.
There is one thing I want to hit on, though, and this comes from the other Brian in the stream. He asks, is anyone not seeing recent episodes of the show on Spotify? Yes, Brian, we are having some technical difficulties. We are out to Spotify trying to get those resolved, hoping to have them resolved by the end of the day. So I know for some people it's been the past 2 days, some people just yesterday. There have been some shows that have not gone up on Spotify as intended. Technical behind-the-scenes difficulties there. We are working through that with Spotify, and we hope to have that resolved by the end of the day. So there is your heads up. If you like catching us on Spotify and you're able to see us, you're finding us in another way. We appreciate you for that. We are hoping to have the Spotify issue resolved shortly.
So just as of note, we love you going wherever you want to go platform-wise for the show. Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, and then the Hail Varsity YouTube channel. The rewind on our different social media outlets as well. Hail Varsity Radio, Twitter, KFOR, Facebook, and Twitter. And our friends at ESPN 590, AM 590, on their Twitter handle as well. So can check the show out, rewind the show that way. It's there for your convenience. You know what was not convenient? Free throw disparity last night for Nebraska. Let's dive in. Those screams you hear behind me, maybe you hear behind me, Nebraska basketball fans' reaction to 8 free throw attempts to 28 free throw attempts. Now, I'll say this. Coach Hoiberg said with Pavelka and Jake Mielheisen, you know, we need to guard without fouling. We were air quote too jumpy, and Nebraska had all sorts of foul trouble. Guys, Ohio State gave up points in the paint, but Nebraska didn't always go to the paint. What they did is they settled a lot from three, and that's fine if you're hitting. And Nebraska did hit 10 threes last night. Trouble is they shot 27%. So I thought Nebraska settled a little bit. I thought Nebraska got out of some rhythm offensively towards the final 3.5, 4 minutes of that first half. That allowed a surge and a run for Ohio State to go to halftime up 35-30. And then Nebraska got into a little bit of trouble. 3-minute scoring drought out of halftime. Nebraska cut it to 2 a couple of times as time dwindled down in that second half. But you had some tough shots, or some questionable shots. One by Kisei for sure, and it never got closer than 65-63. And Ohio State closed out, I believe, on a 10-2 run to ice it. So not a good night for Nebraska. I think we all three agree Nebraska could have iced it, punched their ticket, so to speak, with another quad one win last night. They got work to do Sunday. They've got work to do a week from Sunday in Michigan. We'll lay out where they're at when it comes to seedings and projections. Last night didn't hurt them, but it could have helped them a whole lot. And Nebraska still has some bad habits they go back to on the road with when the game's in reach, or it's a chance to tie a game or take a lead. And sometimes they don't make the best decisions, or the shot isn't falling. Both cases last night.
And we could go, as I alluded to on my Twitter, to the conspiracy theory, which I think is popular among Husker fans today, and that's that the Big Ten and the refs are trying to get Ohio State as many quality wins at the end of the season to sneak them into the tournament as possible. I'm not going to go there. I'm going to lay it out. I'm not going to go there personally, because I'm kind of with you, Schmitty. A good basketball team finds a way to win in spite of the refs. And Nebraska had plenty of chances. I mean, if you want to look at some stats, Ohio State was almost 60% from the field in the second half. Like, you can't allow that on the road. We talked about it yesterday with Nebraska's defense. Nebraska got off to somewhat of a slow start defensively. They closed the game second half defensively without as much intensity as we've come to expect from them over the past couple weeks. That's one place you can look. The shot selection, whenever Nebraska found themselves down 5 late, wasn't the best. You had some guys putting up shots. And I understand at times you do need to put up a three and try to get a quick possession, but it wasn't always the best there. You had multiple guys that didn't have their best games. Kisei, you look at Bryce Williams in the second half was not as much of a scoring threat as you would have liked him to be, and as much as he was in the first half. Rink, I don't want to say he was silent, but it was another game that was rough from Rink from a scoring point of view. A lot of areas you can look at, like you can't ride Sam Hoiberg and Jamarcus Lawrence to a victory on the road against a quad one opponent in the Big Ten. It's as simple as that, especially whenever you let Jamison Battle put up 30 and you let Ohio State shoot almost 60% from the field. You can have frustrations with the refs. I don't think that game was called very well at all, but I'll also say a good basketball team would rise to those circumstances and win in spite of that. And Nebraska didn't last night.
I think a big reason as to why there was such a big free throw disparity was because of that shot selection from Nebraska, especially in that second half, because they didn't get to the rim. Like if you get to the rim, you're probably going to get at least 7 to 10 more free throws in that game. And I know that cuts the disparity in half, but still it looks a lot better on the box score, right? But a part of that was the way that Nebraska played on offense was, you mentioned the case, step back late in the game, and there were just a couple of settling shots, some quick threes, and that was kind of concerning to see because it was a lot of what we've seen before on the road, as Schmidt alluded to earlier, kind of falling back into bad habits. It seems like they're a step slow sometimes on the road. I thought their energy out of the gate was great. They were flying around on defense. Obviously, Jamison Battle was, feeling himself last night, and that happens every now and then. The good news is for Nebraska fans, if you were going to lose one of these next 3 games and it wouldn't hurt you, this was going to be the game. So the fact that you were able to give yourself a chance despite, not really playing that well in the second half, I think says a decent amount about this team, but still need to figure some things out on the road. And again, I know I mentioned this yesterday, and I'm going to double down on it here today. I think the Rink Mass narrative of him not doing anything needs to come to a halt. The guy had 14 and 11 last night. He was the leading scorer on the team. Rink Mass did what he could. The other guys need to step up. I'm not saying Rink Mass is leading this team, but last night, a double-double on the road in Big Ten play. I don't know what much more you want from him. So that's going to be my Rink Mass pedestal that I stand on.
Well, you can stand on the Rink pedestal. That's fine. And listen, he does things besides score. And he is a pressure valve in a good way with the ability to handle the ball, and he does a nice job with his mobility for sure. Finding Kisei, and him and Kisei in the two-man game can be a real nice thing. But there are shots that he just didn't finish at the rim. Now, I know that Redwood playing center for Ohio State, protecting the rim is not easy, but Nebraska's not been great around the rim. And I also want to touch on Juwan Gary coming off a career-high tying game, just his last ball game against Minnesota. 0 for 6 from 3. He's a rhythm guy. Now, his dunk was sweet. It was sick, and it brought Nebraska within 2. But too many of their dudes didn't hit timely threes or important threes. And the reason they didn't get blown out on the road last night is because of Jamarcus Lawrence. He came in, scored 8 straight, brought Nebraska back, and got him within 2. So Lawrence's Superman act was much needed for Nebraska, just 2 guys in double figures. But your big dogs need to be better. Bryce was in foul trouble. All the guys, really. I mean, Nebraska had 3 guys that had 4 fouls, and 2 dudes that had 3 fouls early in the first half. So there was really a hard problem for Nebraska to find any flow with a consistent lineup. They had to keep shuffling in and out, guys, and it was problematic. It's still one they could have won, and I know we all picked Nebraska. That was more heart versus head. I think if we look at it, despite who was out for Ohio State, that's still a situation where, Nebraska's going to Nebraska. And I'm not trying to kick them after a loss. I mean, they'd won 4 straight. Ohio State now takes the crown of the hottest team in the Big Ten away from Nebraska, who came in that way.
How many times does a guy – go for it.
No, continue, Connor, please. I'm sorry. I'm stepping on your toes.
I'm just saying, how many times, because we thought before the game Jamison Battle was questionable. How many times does a guy go from questionable hours before tip-off to dropping 32, right? I mean, that doesn't happen very often. I know Bruce Thornton didn't end up playing, and that shakes things up for Ohio State, but it's hard to, see that coming. I know Jamison Battle's a phenomenal scorer, great shooter, and everything like that, but you don't see a guy drop 30 after coming off the injury list like 2 hours before tip-off.
Well, do you know why he goes and drops 30? I think it's kind of the story of the game last night. Jamison Battle in that Ohio State squad as a whole was hungrier. They were hungrier for a win than Nebraska was in that moment. They needed it more. They fought for it. I think so. And I look specifically at Nebraska settling for, 30-plus three-point attempts. Like, a hungry team battles and gets to the rim, in my opinion, and a hungry team gives better defensive intensity than that. Whenever a guy's got 30, you maybe have that in the back of your mind. You make sure he doesn't get an open look from three. You fight over that screen late whenever Jamison Battle knocks down that three and absolutely ices the game. I just think it was a team that, I don't want to say lacked hunger, but I think the Ohio State team had more hunger.
I think it might have been nerves knowing, too. Let's go in and get this. It's still okay to say Nebraska's got a confidence problem on the road. Yes, you beat Indiana, but your body of work speaks to what you are on the road in some tough moments. We'll check in with Tim Barada. More thoughts on Nebraska basketball. Hail Varsity with you on a Friday from PBA, and we're presented by Cornhead Lager.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back into it, it's Hail Varsity Radio here at PBA, and what a scene tonight as it's the semifinals for Class A, Lincoln Southwest and Bellevue West. We welcome in outstanding coach, fresh off career win 250 as head coach of Lincoln Southwest. Tim Barada joins us. Coach, thanks for a few minutes. How's your Friday going?
Absolutely. Friday's great. I was blessed enough to be able to get the day off today. I went down and watched the game and a half this morning and came home and sewed some things up with our scouting report and things like that. So all great to be able to be playing at this time of year.
It is, and let's go back to Thursday night and just the ebbs and flows against inner-city rival Lincoln Southeast. Your girls come out with that 58-56 win. A lot of stops, timely threes, great offense, and a classic at PBA.
Yeah, it was, a typical inter-city rivalry in which, both teams are just going to keep swinging until the end. We kind of go with the motto of stay in the fight. That's an old Bill Hurd, Brad Feakin saying, if you stick around long enough and you keep swinging, you're going to have a chance in the end. We made enough plays. We were pretty good early. Got caught on our heels in the second quarter, but I thought after halftime our kids were pretty composed and made some real timely shots. We've had kids make timely shots all year, and Eleanor really played well. But you have Kennedy, which is what we're riding with, and she's just even enough to keep everybody going in the same direction. And at the end of the day, we were able to get a stop at the end, and that's what we pride ourselves on anyway is defense. So to get a stop was pretty fitting.
Lincoln Southwest girls basketball coach Tim Barada with us here on Hail Varsity Radio ahead of their game tonight, which you can hear locally on KFOR. And Tim, whenever you discuss this time of year, you've been in the state tournament plenty. What is that message you give to your kids before a quarterfinal or before a semifinal, knowing you're the higher seed, but also knowing that there's no easy outs this time of year?
Well, that's exactly. You get to this point in the year, and you get to the Final Four. It's a great accomplishment. I don't think our kids quite understand the magnitude of how big of a deal it is because we've been there 8 straight years. We tried to tell our 2 freshman kids that play for us. They came out of the locker room after our game yesterday and just were like, wow, that was really fun. So I feel pretty good about what we've done in the sense of we make a big deal out of it of going downtown and we have our lunch and we hang out and spend time together before. But once we go to PBA and the kids get changed and we go through pregame, it's like enjoy the atmosphere, wave at your parents, take it all in. But once you cross the line and they throw that ball up, it's just another game, whether it's on that court, whether it's on our court, wherever you play. It's just another game. So hopefully they fall back to the the details that we worked on in practice, and they trust each other. And then you see what happens. There's 4 teams left. Anybody's got a shot.
Tim Barada is with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Semis tonight, Lincoln Southwest, Bellevue West. Coach, we'll get a thought on Bell West here in just a moment. But your warm-up shirts say family. Tell me about your team, that family, that chemistry, that leadership you have this season.
Well, that's just a motto that I've always went with, and our kids buy into it. They believe it. Our kids really like each other on and off, but they know they are happy to do anything to have success as a group. And if they accept roles, we got 11 kids that will do anything to help us win, and that comes from the top with Kennedy of doing anything. But our other kids are all in. They are really happy when somebody else has success, and you don't find that a lot. With that said, it's one of those deals where we also kind of coined the phrase and have some shirts that say culture wins. And I think that's what you fall back on is your practice and your habits, and how you do anything is how you do everything, and those kinds of things. So it's really fun for our kids to see that come through and be able to live in the moment and things like that, because we don't have diehard basketball kids. We have kids that play, every one of our kids plays at least one other sport. So when we're out there, it's like they are all in, and that's what we love about our kids is they're totally ingrained in what we're doing and the culture that we've built, and they're living on it, and they know what's got us there. And we're not always perfect when we play, but I tell people our kids really they do 2 things. They really play hard and they hate to lose. So if you have that as a coach, I can't complain about anything that happens after that.
You talk about your kids enjoying the moment. And you let off this interview saying you got the day off from work today, but what are you doing? You're crossing the T's and dotting the I's on your scouting report. Do you get to enjoy the moment this week at all?
Oh, absolutely. I had a bunch of people around that I was able to see, after our game the other night, and able to see a handful of coaches this morning. And, when you win games in the state tournament, your phone blows up and things like that. So it's been really fun. I've actually really been in touch with a lot of my old boys from when I was in Wilbur, Claytonia, and things like that. Social media makes that world pretty easy, but a lot of those guys reached out, and they, they'll tell you it wasn't always easy, because even our girls will tell you I'm not the easiest guy to play for. However, our kids really like winning, but more importantly, they hate losing, so they will do whatever it is to win. So what we do as coaches is try and get them prepared as much as possible. Don't give them overload. Give them things they can handle, and then just let instincts and abilities take over and go from there.
Coach, I got to follow up. What makes you not the easiest guy to play for?
Well, Schmidt, I don't know how you put it on the radio. I'm kind of a jerk sometimes to our kids because of the accountability piece and the expectations and things like that. And, my boys will tell you that I used to coach the same thing, but I also tell our kids that I love them. So they know that what we're after, end result, is making better people out of them, and hopefully we can win some games along the way. I want these kids to appreciate what we're doing, but learn some life lessons as we do it. And then when they're moms and wives and things down the road, they can fall back on some of those things that were hard and go, hey, I got through things. I can use this to learn from. I can use this to help me be a good mom. I can use this to help me. Discipline carries you through a lot of things, and I think that's one of the things we have in our culture. So that's what you go with. And, as a parent, things aren't always easy. So as a coach, things aren't always easy. So we take it. The older I get, it's probably a little easier for kids. But we try to keep it fun for them too. And I got great assistant coaches that kind of balance out the meanness in me with telling our kids that we love them as well. So that's really good for me to have is my assistants with me.
Tim Barada with us, your head coach, Lincoln Southwest girls basketball team. And Coach, you talk about it not being easy. It's not going to be an easy task tonight against Bellevue West. Without giving away any state secrets that you don't want getting out, what are some things you're looking for from your team tonight if you come away with a win?
Well, they have all their kids back from last year. I don't know if you guys remember last year we were 14-10 going into the district final. We had to go to Bell West. They were the 2 seed, and we were the 13, and we knocked them off So they remember that. Coach Dave Bacon does a great job with his kids. He's actually a good friend of mine. I talked to earlier this week. But they have some really, really good players. Naomi White going to Grand Canyon is a great player. She actually plays with Kennedy in the summer. Kenzie Melcher's a great player. She's going to Northwest Missouri. Annika Brown is a great player. Danny Croyer's going to Bevy. They just have a lot of really good players. We're going to have to be able to do a couple things. We're going to have to slow down their transition. We're going to have to be able to defend, and make things hard for them to be able to score. I think it's a situation where their kids aren't going to be nervous. They were in the semis last year, so I don't think nerves is going to be an issue for either group. It's a matter of who can shine in the bright lights and see what happens.
Tim Barada is with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Southwest and Bell West tonight, 7:45 locally on KFOR. Right before that, North Star against Millard West. And, Coach, as we let you go, and I always love covering you, your team, your assistants, and appreciate the access. Just a thought on the state of girls basketball, what you're getting to see week in, week out. And I know you keep an eye on your team for sure in Class A, but just all levels. You've got a Metro Final Four. You've got growth around the state, but just what have you been able to glean this season around the state with basketball?
Well, I think a handful of things go into that. Getting the shot clock for Class A year ago was a big step in the right direction. Getting it for Class B this year is a good step. And John Dolliver's done a great job of promoting that. And now, the season Ds have voted, and we're going to have it across the board. I think that it helps the game make it more realistic. That's what they do at the college level, so why not do it at the high school level? But I think kids continue to evolve as players, and that's a blessing and a curse because we have some groups where their kids are basketball-only kids, and that part of it I do not like. I want kids at the high school level to do multiple sports. Even if you're not the best at something, you need to be part of multiple teams, especially if you're a high-level athlete. With that said, the blessing part is you look across the state and how many high-level basketball players are out there. It makes it really fun for a young girl, my sixth-grade kids, things like that I teach that get to see high-level basketball, and hopefully they're in the driveway, and hopefully they're working on their teams, not just to score baskets and not just to win games, but what can I do as a team? What can I be part of? Things like that, because the game is so much more than just winning and losing. It's being a great teammate and things like that. So hopefully all those lessons become part of what girls basketball is in the future as well.
Tim Barada with us, girls head coach, Lincoln Southwest, Bell West, tonight locally on KFOR. Coach, great to spend some time with you here before the ball game. Thanks for making time. We'll see you a little bit later on.
Absolutely, guys. I appreciate you both.
Good stuff from Southwest girls coach Tim Barada, Bell West, Southwest, and then Connor will have tonight Lincoln North Star against Millard West. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, Connor Clark. As Connor will be making his way down to PBA here in just a bit. Elijah in studio. Then we will free Elijah from studio down to PBA for the nightcap. Chris Schmidt, great to be with you here on Hail Varsity Friday edition. The Pride of Fairbury's Bill Doleman, he'll be with us here in the 5 o'clock hour. Jacob Padilla wrapping up some coverage now of the game that just ended, and it was Elkhorn North hanging on 59-49 over Beatrice, surviving the orange. We'll get to more of your stream comments and talk technology. Not just us digitally, but how about the world of college football? Oh, yes, they're moving forward. They're getting plugged in. Thoughts on that, Hail Varsity, powered by Cornhead Lager.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you here at PBA. It's Hail Varsity Courtside. We're powered by Cornhead Lager. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, Connor Clark can watch the show on the Hail Varsity YouTube channel, also Hail Varsity Radio, Twitter at HVarsity Radio. Numbers to get in, 489-1240, 800-825-5865. We take all sorts of calls during football season, basketball. It'll heat up during baseball, I'm sure. But Elijah, you got an interesting phone call here during the break. You wisely screened the phone call and didn't throw the caller on. Do tell before we get into college football crawling their way to the 22nd century.
Well, I pick up, and if you've called this, it's a pretty standard operating procedure. If you've called us here, I pick up.
You call sports radio, producer/host says, hey, what's your name? What do you got?
Yes, exactly. Say, who am I speaking with? It's Hail Varsity Radio. Gives me his name. I say, what do you got for us today? And he says, well, I was wondering what you got for me. And I said, what do you mean by that? And he goes, I'm calling for the sexy girls.
Was it a Borat voice?
No, he was slow and measured, this gentleman.
Oh, my goodness.
And I said, I don't know if you have the right number. And he goes, well, I saw it online. I'm pretty sure I do. And I said, I don't know. And he goes, well, do you have the sexy girls? And I said, sir, this is a sports talk radio show.
Absolutely not.
And there was a long pause after that.
The response of, well, what do you have for me?
And after I say this is a sports talk radio show, there's a long pause. And I say, hello. And he goes, so who am I calling? And I said, I already laid it. This is a radio station. And he goes, so no women? And I said, I think you have the wrong number. And he said, I think you're right. And we went our separate ways. But that was interesting.
Now, just to be fair, our digital demo breakdown is 70-30. We have lots of wonderful female listeners to Hail Varsity Radio. We have lots of wonderful male listeners to Hail Varsity Radio. We cherish all of you.
But the problem is that if you're calling into a radio station looking for anyone sexy, male or female, you've called the wrong place. We work in radio for a reason. It's because we don't have the faces for TV.
That's just what you want for...
Why did we implement the stream?
For yeah, there's going to be some guy in a dark room in a chair with smoke billowing out. And that these are the voices he calls for sexy talk.
I mean,
I love how Jacob walked up right next to him.
Yeah, Jacob was wondering what's going on in the world, and he's finishing up his math before he jumps on with us here.
I guess if you're paying, you want me to talk sexy to you on the phone, I guess.
Yeah, you can hop on now. Yeah, we're live, Big Cat. So we just had an interesting phone call. Someone dialed our 800 line by mistake. Turn you down so you don't start bleeding out of your ears.
Okay,
sorry about that.
I can think again.
So Elijah just had a phone call. Well, you relay it. Just reset it for Jacob.
Basically, I just told the story, so I'll give it in as short as terms as possible. A gentleman called in, not looking to go on the air. He was looking to talk to the sexy women. And I had to let him down easy and let him know that there are no sexy women.
Sir, you are calling a sports radio show.
Alrighty then.
And Jacob's like, "Can we talk basketball?" I had tears coming down my eyes. It's like we've had a lot of calls over the years with Nebraska's performance, but nothing requesting that.
Yeah, that's probably a first.
We'll get into high school and some of the matchups here in a moment. Reaction to Ohio State, Nebraska last night, and then get your take on Marquette Creighton.
Yeah. I didn't get to watch the Ohio State game because obviously,
Creighton was playing.
Yeah. When I've been a little busy this week, so I haven't had time to go back and watch it. I was here, but that's performances like that are kind of what gives you pause to go all in. Team missing its best player. Obviously, they've been tougher since the coaching change, but it's a team that you had already beaten, and to just kind of have that kind
settle
of performance.
For threes.
Yeah, and your best players kind of not leading the way, like some rough shot selection from what I saw, and obviously really poor shooting on top of it. Mm-hmm. That's kind of, they got to find a way to get that cleaned up just a little bit as you head into the postseason here, especially because you're not going to have PBA behind you. You're going to have to find a way to generate your own energy, generate your own momentum. It's going to be neutral sites the rest of the way once you get into the postseason. So It's just one loss. Like they weren't favored to win that game, and again, Ohio State's been better, so not the end of the world. But you got to find a way to avoid those kind of, especially like listening to like seeing some of Fred's reaction to it and just how disappointed he was with the effort and the decision making, all that type of stuff. That's stuff that you can control. Whether an off shooting night, that'll happen. It's the stuff that leads to the off shooting that you can fix, and you don't want to let it happen, but it should be fixable at least.
Jacob, from your time coaching basketball, it seems to be a trend this season where when Nebraska has a game that goes well for them, where you take down Purdue, you take down Wisconsin, or a string of games that go well for you, when the good feelings get going for this Husker basketball team, they tend to lay an egg after that. And last night wasn't laying an egg, but I saw the same thing Fred did. I saw a team that got out-efforted by Ohio State. Ohio State looked like the hungrier team. From your time coaching basketball, is there any solution to that, any coaching solutions for a team that lets the good feelings get to them a little bit, or is that just something you're going to have to learn to live with, something you're going to have to learn to deal with, and hope that when the NCAA tournament rolls around that guys are going to bring that full effort every time?
Yeah. Oh, the solution is to show them results like that, and like you want to let this happen again. That's the whole key. Like you have to learn from your mistakes, and you have to learn from what you do well, what you do poorly, and you have to recognize when stuff like that happens. Like if it is a trend, the players have to realize why it's happening and what they need to do to fix it. And the coaches can only say so much. Like you can ride the guys as much as you want to, but ultimately it's going to be on them. And so if they're the type that this game, this kind of result performance didn't sit well, then you shouldn't have to do too much from a coaching standpoint to fix it. Just point it out and make sure they know that, hey, this can't happen again. But again, it's going to be on them to actually take that to heart and make the necessary adjustments.
And there was a moment at the end of the first half where I think Fred may have been sending a message. It was the last possession where he throws Cale Jacobson in as well as Matar Diop. Both those guys get in the last possession. Maybe you like the defense they bring, but I think there was a message behind that Fred didn't like the defensive effort of the last couple minutes of that first half. And Jacob, I know you didn't watch that, but I think that may have been a Fred trying to coach that into his guys that we need better effort.
Yeah, could be. Could also be make sure nobody gets any fouls in that situation. If it's one possession, one defensive possession, that's also an option. But I like your theory. That certainly can work.
Jacob, hang tight. Go ahead, Connor.
We have 60 seconds here.
Okay, well, we can wait till the next.
Yeah, hang through about 3 minutes on the other side. You got it?
Yep, I'm good.
Okay. So Jacob Padilla, courtside here at PBA. Can find him at Jacob Padilla _ Catch his work with Hail Varsity and Hurrdat Sports. He is all over Creighton. He's all over Nebraska. He's all over girls state basketball with 2024 tournament coverage. Him and Mike Sauter are doing a bang-up job as always.
The question is, does Jacob know where the sexy women are? That's the real question. Because I don't.
In context, we had a prank caller /
yeah. Let's just go to break on that.
Yeah. It was funnier out of context.
Yeah, very uncomfortable for some, but not all. Yes, more on the weekend of hoops ahead. We're here at PBA. Hail Varsity continues. We're powered by Cornhead Lager.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Winding down hour one, Hail Varsity here at PBA, powered by Cornhead Lager. Jacob Padilla courtside with this. Connor, go for it.
Just after last night's loss, and I know you said that you didn't watch it, Jacob, but that makes me curious. Does that make you feel any less confident about that game that's looming at Michigan? I know it's a little over a week away, and I know they got stomped last night at Rutgers, but you add the Doug McDaniel factor in there. You add the lack of confidence factor in there. Does that change your opinion on that game?
I don't know that it changes my opinion. I kind of felt like they still had this in them. I wasn't totally confident that they had gotten through it just because of the overwhelming amount of data in favor of them really struggling on the road, no matter the circumstances. One win wasn't enough to convince me that was entirely gone. And again, the Doug McDaniel factor, it kind of makes it hard to compare to the first time they played them. So it's like we talked about. It's something that they're going to have to identify and fix whatever is causing that, because that would be a really rough way to end the regular season and head into postseason play, taking another loss like that.
Jacob, want to get your take on high school hoops? You just saw Britt Prince show up, show out, wow, and then you've got your Class A semis tonight.
Yeah, just watched Britt Prince drop a triple-double after a 33-16 game in the first round. And the thing that's so impressive about her is just the way she basically can impact the game in every single way possible, and kind of figures out whatever you're throwing at her, she'll find a way which part of her skill set is best utilized to help her team win in this moment. And in this one, they're playing like triangle and two, kind of junking things up. And she did a great job of continuing to find her teammates. Sydney Stodden had 16, and most of them were just off of Britt tossing her in the gap in the zone on that backside for a little baseline jumper. And then great rebounder at her side. She really attacks the glass. I mean, 5 steals, 3 blocks, just really disruptive on defense. And then she scored 21 as well against that junk defense. So that's kind of the thing that's so impressive about her is she can do everything. Like I don't know what her weakness is as a basketball player. I've been watching her for 4 years now, and I don't think there is necessarily one. She can continue to get better at everything, just like any basketball player can. But there's not one thing where I look at and say, okay, that's something she doesn't do well. And that'll certainly serve her well as she moves on to the next level and plays a lot more games here at PBA.
North Star tonight, Millard West. You have Southwest Bell West. It's the two metros clashing again.
Yep. I was really impressed with North Star and what they did against Millard North there. Sarah Gatwich, really active, long, kind of stuff on the stat sheet. Anu Liu, as a sophomore, is really impressive. Didn't shoot super well, but made a lot of plays. Had 10 offensive rebounds, I think. And then Kendall Anderson knocked down some big shots as well. So Millard West did not play very well at all in their first game. Didn't shoot the ball at all. They didn't get great games from the Gesser twins and still kind of still pulled that game out. So you have to think that they're going to bounce back and have to find a way to counteract that. Southwest, unfortunately, they're the best team that I haven't seen play yet this year. I obviously know about Kennedy Williams, and I know she kind of struggled a little bit in the first round. So you kind of figure bounce back game for her. She's not going to go out without a fight. So yeah, it should be good. WS, really talented team as well. Their backcourt is tremendous. So should be a couple of good games tonight.
Jacob Padilla, Jacob Padilla _ Hail Varsity and Hurrdat Sports. Jacob, good to see you, bud.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. Hour 2 coming up. It's Hail Varsity, powered by Cornhead Lager.
He's the pride of Fairbury, an average Joe. Bill Doleman, the professor.
I had a 6 ACT in 1967. One time I got an A and my grandma beat me for cheating.
Now with Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you. It's Hour 2. It's Hail Varsity. We're powered by Cornhead Lager, courtside here at PBA. Elijah Herbel, Chris Schmidt, Bill Doleman, pride of Fairbury, NBC Sports. The professor at Bill Doleman on Twitter. Billy D, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. I just wish I was a little bit like you, where I'm in a place where I'm surrounded by thousands of my friends as I take a look at the stream and look behind you.
You know, it's between games, jerks.
Oh, okay. All right.
And it was before games yesterday, Elijah, with you coming off the top rope and 2 steel chairs.
See, I can't wait till I show up and all my adoring fans are there once I get there.
Assuming they're not lined up on the phone lines to call you.
We had our good friend Crew from the stream chat call in asking to talk to the sexy boys. So thank you for that one, Crew.
Yeah, Bill, we got the mother. It's taken 20 years, but we finally got someone calling into the KFOR phone lines / Hail Varsity Radio phone lines asking for sexy girls. So, because they found the number on the internet, and thank God, not a bathroom stall. So
I thought maybe they were looking for the old Average Joe Sports Show before he went to podcast.
Yeah, no kidding, right?
Yeah, right.
Well, you know, let's rate Nebraska's performance last night at Ohio State. And Dion in the stream asks a question, and he's been chatting with some of the other stream listeners on the Hail Varsity YouTube channel. How does, and we'll just kind of go from the response here. How do you explain the bottom feeders / the lower part of the Big Ten upsetting the top part? What do you make of the league? Start there for me this year. Yeah, it's down when we look at how many bids are going to be handed out here in 3 weeks, likely. That being said, what do you think of Big Ten basketball And then let's kind of dive into last night.
You know, I think I'm trying to. It has been an enigma this season, and maybe it's because some of the teams that have been down are the big name teams. Not that they're perennial powerhouses, although Michigan's had some great teams. But Michigan's down, Ohio State's down, Indiana is down, very down, right? So I think that takes away the perception of what the Big Ten should be. And especially because Michigan was thought would be better, that would be improving under Juwan Howard, and it might be that he's on his way out. Mike Woodson was supposed to have had a very good team at Indiana this year. That has not turned out to be the case at all. So I think when you've got named teams like that, and Ohio State's already fired its coach, that takes away the perception. But we are also getting into the month of March today, and you've got some teams playing with a sense of panic. We saw Nebraska a year ago, very much in a similar situation in the month of February, kind of playing for its coach's career at Nebraska, and the Huskers turned it around and knocked off some teams late down the stretch. And I think with Ohio State, maybe you're seeing that. Nebraska certainly saw that last night, that whether they are attached to their coach, is it Justin Fiedler, and want to see him get the gig. I don't think he will, but firing Chris Holtzman has turned that team around all of a sudden. And I don't think they were, that bad, but when we saw them in Lincoln, they looked like a glorified men's league team. They just didn't care, right? But I think you're getting teams in March that are playing with a sense of urgency, that are playing, if not for their NCAA tournament lives, certainly to solidify a spot in the NIT. And Minnesota probably falls into that category after losing to Nebraska. Rutgers is still fighting to get into the NCAA tournament. Ohio State, is not, but maybe an NIT bid. So I think there's a little urgency as to why some of those teams perceived to be in the bottom are knocking off some of the teams on the top. And some of the top teams are fading. Wisconsin got slugged by Nebraska. Nebraska proved the bully may not be all that tough, and they have struggled since losing in Lincoln.
Well, yeah, Wisconsin, I think, is a great example of a team that lost its urgency and has kind of lost some of the mojo that it had going early in this season. I mean, you had Minnesota talk about it last week whenever they came into Lincoln, I guess on Sunday, that Nebraska was a team that was more urgent. They seemed like they had more to play for, even though Minnesota was playing for their tournament lives. I think we saw an Ohio State team that had more urgency last night against Nebraska, knowing there's still a backdoor shot that they could get into the NCAA tournament if a couple things go their way. My question to you, Bill, is when you look at the last two games of the season, Rutgers and Michigan, do you worry about Nebraska's urgency in those final two games, knowing it's more than likely they're going to make it into the tournament unless the wheels fall off? But I guess if the wheels fall off, it would start with losing to both Rutgers and Michigan.
I don't necessarily worry about it. I think as we looked at that four-game stretch with Nebraska, Minnesota, Ohio State, Rutgers, and Michigan, I think most people would say if they're going to lose one of those four games, it's going to be at Ohio State. And it happened. Ohio State's been a lot better since Holtzman got fired. Make no mistake about it. Why that is, I don't know. But I think on Sunday, look, Rutgers is still in that category of trying to get into the tournament conversation, and a win over Nebraska in Lincoln, Nebraska's the hunted, would go a long way in helping Rutgers at least make some semblance of an argument. Nebraska cannot lose at Michigan. That just can't happen. If they played the way they played last night at Michigan, I think that they can win the game. I didn't think they played horribly last night. Some key players did not shoot the ball well last night, but you can't get beat at the free throw line. What was it, 24-7 at the free throw line last night? I mean, I find that a bit of an odd discrepancy. But look, Sunday against Rutgers it's senior day, and I don't think you're going to see this Nebraska basketball team that has played so well at home have a letdown in the regular season finale. They're not going to play an NIT game in Lincoln, I don't think. I think it's going to be an emotional day. I think the effort you saw Nebraska play with against Minnesota, which I thought was rugged, they bullied Minnesota. They were efficient offensively. They moved the ball well. I likened it the other day. I likened it to watching an old Bobby Knight Indiana team. I thought they were just efficient and rugged. And that's going to win you games in March, and that's where we are. But as emotional as I expect Sunday to be, I just cannot imagine Nebraska losing to Rutgers on Sunday.
Well, you don't want to sweat with, going to Michigan and screwing that up. You got to take care of Sunday for sure, right? And then whatever you get in the Big Ten tournament, that double bye, you're going to need some help, some more help with that now with last night's loss. But you had a chance to solidify yourself with another quad one win last night, and you didn't do it. And I guess the thing that frustrates Nebraska fans, if you just get beat, so be it. But what makes Nebraska fans smile about this team is how they play and how they win. But it also, what's infuriating is how they lose, and sometimes their decision-making. And I think Jacob Padilla was with us last segment, put it best. There's still that glimmer of doubt with this team, not that they can't get to where they want to go, and that's dancing, but that they revert back to some bad habits is the best way to put it. And listen, 3-point shooting's a monster part of their offense. It was it took I don't know, 35 attempts, whatever the number was, but they were 10 of 30 plus, so they shot 27%. I mean, they just weren't efficient last night, Bill, and they just didn't finish at the rim either, and that was frustrating for many Nebraska fans. And they just settled, brother. They just settled for some threes.
But it was not as bad as the Minnesota loss at the begining of conference play.
Minnesota.
That was a disastrous
Maryland
collapse. Maryland was, they didn't look like they looked inept. They looked terrible at Minnesota, losing in the second half. They looked inept at Maryland and at Rutgers. I mean, those were some horrifically ugly road losses of games that they should have won. Last night, though, again, Ohio State, since firing Holtzman, they've been rough on people. What are they, 3-1 now with since the coaching change? So they played pretty well. And Nebraska, look, they got down, they battled back. They never got over and was able to take the lead. And there were some questionable threes in transition. Tominaga was hoisting up some shots, and he goes 3 for 12. And Gary was 3 for 12, Mast for 5 for 14. They missed shots they've been making down that stretch in the 4-game or 5-game winning streak. So I thought they fought. Yeah, they took some bad shots, but we're comparing how bad did they look in losses. I thought they were competitive last night. It wasn't the disasters and the embarrassments and the ineptitude and all of that with Rutgers, Maryland, and Minnesota. They got beat by a team that is surging at an important time, and they lost on the road at home. It happens.
Do you have any comments on the referees from last night?
24 of 28 and 7 of 8. I rest my case.
Enough said.
Home cooking.
That's kind of like winning a Super Bowl without somebody calling a holding on the other team, or without being
someone's bitter.
Look, it's a rugged Big Ten game to have 8 free throws attempted in a game.
Well, if you're partying outside the 3-point arc, just launching threes, it's hard to get a call in the paint.
I know, but still, there should be more free throws. It should be at least comparable. That's not comparable. 20 in a Big Ten game. Come on.
Bill, let's go to the next episode of Chasing 3. What do you anticipate? What do you want to see in the next episode? If Bill Doleman is tasked with some creative control here, what is the feature? What's the surprise going to be here next episode?
Well, the feature in the first episode was, the 2 defensive linemen, Hutmaker and Robinson. Okay, so I'm thinking that we're going to go to some position group. I wonder if they are going to put a camera on the quarterback room at all during this series. Are they going to devote some time to the celebrity that is the Dylan Raiola phenomena, Danny Kaelin, Heinrich Harburg, or are they just going to let that kind of be a side story that people wonder about? Why put them in the spotlight more than that position already is, and Dylan and Danny already are? So I bet we're going to see week to week different position groups that are highlighted. Maybe we see the Buford brothers, and or maybe we see the wide receiver core. Although there are some guys who are out, that won't be participating in spring ball, so maybe we won't see them. Maybe we'll see some guys that are on the mend, hoping to come back, like Gabe Irvin and Ramir Johnson. It's not who we see during this series. I'm kind of curious as to who we won't see. Mm-hmm. It'll be good no matter what we see.
It's Bill Doleman with us here, Hail Varsity Radio. And Bill, before we get you out, a reaction to more technology on the sidelines of college football. That's been in the news today. Matt Rule maybe had it right back in October whenever he commented on the Michigan situation. Sounds like you're going to get some more sideline technology as well as headsets in the helmets for quarterbacks to allow that direct communication. Your reaction to that seems well past due at this point, but it does sound like it's going to be happening and potentially implemented into college football in 2024.
I think we should go back to the time when Tom Osborne would whisper into the ear of Donnie Westbrook and Chuck Melito and send in a play with the two guys to relay it to the quarterback of the time, or to Dave Hum or something. And no electronics on the sidelines or anything anywhere. Let's just go back to Spartan football in the old days. Nah, like I'm shocked, like everybody else, that they haven't been doing this. To have the transmitter in the helmet or any other gizmo that they have come up with to make the game a little more efficient and into the 21st century. So it's just the evolution of the game of football and whatever the Big Ten and the SEC want to do at this point. I'm all for whatever gets rid of those panels of boards and the signs that they hold up, so we never have to see those things again.
Those were fun.
Those should just be banned altogether.
Who doesn't?
Get rid of that. I don't care what they do beyond.
Who doesn't want the old Ozark tribute where there's 4 squares? There's a picture of Spartacus in one square. There's the Oregon Duck in another. There's Uncle Phil Knight in the lower corner, and then there's the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Or there's the picture of Samantha Fox in her bikini from 1984.
Better then than now.
Yeah, or Farrah Fawcett's poster. I got it. If that's what they're going to go back to, okay, maybe I'll allow it. But I'm so all that. It looked like watching a game show from the 1970s where you're trying to put the panels together to come up and solve the puzzle.
It was kind of fun to decipher it, though, or at least attempt to decipher what was going on, right?
It's
Boss Hog, Cletus, Daisy, and Uncle Jesse. Quarterback sneak.
Yeah, it's just them trying to be too cute for their own good, come up with something and looking stupid in the process.
Can I get
rid of those panels and I'll be a happy football fan.
Can I get 2 minutes on the other side? I want to get your take on the NCAA and Charlie Baker and what's happening with the board of directors directing NCAA enforcement to stand down, man.
I got 2 minutes for you, but 2 words: eject.
They are.
Abort mission.
They are.
See you later.
They are. So we'll get 2 more minutes with Bill Doleman on the other side when it comes to the NCAA tucking their tail between their legs, at least while there's an injunction going on. We are courtside here at Pinnacle Bank Arena. The North Star Band is wailing away, and they're doing a fine job at it.
I think it's Jackson 5, yeah?
Yeah, I think that's it.
I think it's I Want You Back. Maybe not anymore. They were for a bit.
In that tune.
That's pretty good. We'll play Sing That Song with one Elijah Herbel.
Hail Varsity Radio karaoke.
Oh, yeah. Pour me a drink. All right, Hour 2 continues. Hail Varsity, powered by Cornhead Lager.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Friday edition, Hail Varsity rolls forward, powered by Cornhead Lager. Courtside here at PBA, Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. Some overtime here with the Pride of Fairbury. NBC Sports' Bill Doleman. Reminder to get buckled up. Use your seatbelt. It saves lives. It prevents injuries only if properly worn. Make it click. A message from the NDOT Highway Safety Office. 30-minute warm-up period is Millard West out of their locker room. 26-1 for Millard West. And Lincoln North Star getting their first state tournament win ever Thursday night. Back-to-back state tournament trips for the Gators. Elijah Herbel will be down here at PBA, as well as Southwest and Bell West at 7:45 tonight. Bill, what did they get your take? Pete Thamel tweeting this out of ESPN. And you have an injunction right now, which means this. NCAA sent members a letter today saying, look, in response to the latest order, the Division I Board of Directors directed the NCAA enforcement staff to pause and not begin any investigations involving third-party participation in NIL activities, NIL-related activities. That means Rocky Top can play that band a little louder today and other programs. But Charlie Baker's comments, there'll be no penalty for conduct that occurs consistent with the injunction. While the injunction's in place, I agree with the decision. While the progress towards long-term solutions underway, we'll wait and have discussions. So there's a pause, there's no teeth, there's no enforcement. Let's just start getting the bagmen, baby.
I think this is kind of like saying we will not have security at Walmart on Black Friday.
Nice.
And I think you're going to see member institutions and third-party advisors and the equivalency of AAU sponsors and shoe companies and apparel and all that. They're going to be crowding the door, and everybody's going to be sprinting for the big screens, and there's going to be nothing anybody can do about it for a little while. And once somebody, be it in Congress or the NCAA or the institutions themselves, decide they're going to police themselves, I don't know how college sports ever gets back to anything resembling what we used to know. But look, Charlie Baker, to his credit, realizes there's nothing they can do right now other than hope that somebody will put some guardrails in place that people may honor, but I'm not sure that's going to be the case either. I kind of feel bad for Charlie Baker because his predecessor, Mark Emmert, was an absolute disaster in not addressing the current status of the current storms that were brewing under his tenure, and not looking into the future as to what could happen. And then he resigns, and Baker comes in from Capitol Hill. Maybe they thought that his ties in politics and government would help. That's not proving to be the case. And instead of Congress and the government and all the suits at the NCAA having any power, it's people in letter jackets on high school campuses right now that have all of the power in college sports. High school kids, college kids, and those who are advising them right now are the ones who are reading the legalese and saying, here's what you can do now. Go at it, and there's nothing anybody in a suit and tie can do to stop you.
Well, the handlers will be having fun.
Yeah,
nice.
But credit. Look, credit saying, look, we can't enforce anything right now, and you go back in time to some of the cases that the NCAA was investigating and getting people on, whether it was buying a hamburger for a recruit, or was it the Florida State offensive coordinator got in trouble for taking a kid for a ride to an NIL meeting where he was going to get a deal to get money, but the coach is in trouble for arranging a ride that doesn't come through, so he gives him the ride, and he's the one that's in trouble. And, of course, the women's tennis team at UMass Amherst losing its conference title over a rotary dial phone hookup remains the most egregious example.
What is that story? What is that story?
Oh, I got to go look back and look at the details. It's like 10 years ago. There was the women's tennis team at UMass Amherst won its first conference title like in 30 years, but it came to light that some of the girls who were living in an apartment or in a house, there was a rotary or a landline phone that had been taken care of, hooked up or whatever, and was paid for. And because they deemed that an extra benefit, they took away the conference championship of this tennis team that had never won one in its history. And it's a landline phone. Nobody even used it. But because somebody spent like $89 to activate it in the house that they were living in, they deemed it an extra benefit.
Whew.
Do you know what that
That's
phone bill was?
That's the NCAA. That's the NCAA saying, here's how much power we have. Meanwhile, you've got this conference realignment thing going, and we can't stop it. But damn it, we're going to get women's tennis teams and not give them their trophy back. Look it up, UMass women's tennis.
And they're still teed off about it.
It was a $250 phone bill over the course of 3 years.
But it was like the house that they were living in.
Yep.
The owner of the house or something paid for it to be activated. They didn't even use it, but they deemed it as an extra benefit for a women's tennis team at UMass. We can't have that happening. We're the NCAA. No clue at all.
Man, for poor UMass tennis to get whacked like that.
UMass Amherst.
Sorry. Well, that's what UMass is.
Right, but that's the NCAA, right? We are going to make billions and billions of dollars.
Meanwhile, Marcus Camby and Coach Cal in the Final Four team. How'd they put the Final Four team together, allegedly? Back in '96.
You've got all these basketball coaches, beginning with Sean Miller and DeAndre Ayton back in 2017, involving an FBI investigation and coaches going to jail and major coaches resigning convenient. Coast-to-coast investigations that, Bill Self sat out the Texas Southern game. We're fine with that, right? We're okay with that. But this women's tennis team, that's the NCAA for you.
I worry about, Bill, we'll get you out on this. Elijah wants your take too. But with zero enforcement right now with this injunction, fine. I mean, NIL is NIL. And schools, I like Nebraska's proposal in the legislature to let the university have more say or be able to partner versus and keep your 1890s for sure, but be able to partner versus having to play the telephone game to communicate without breaking rules.
Pun intended?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
I think that has to happen. That there has to be approved, if it's going to be the NCAA or the College Football Association or the CNFL, or the NCFL, National College Football League, something like that. That the schools are going to have to come together and set agreed upon rules.
Tampering.
And the players, there's going to be a union, and then bring the collectives in so that there are those that are approved. And you can at least police them in some way, but you're still going to have Happy Meals. You're still going to have, those donors that are going to, and they're going to give out the cash under the table, over the table, make it rain up in here, right? that the NCAA is just not going to be able to police, or the NCFL is not going to be able to police. But at least you put something in place to make it look like you do have some control in some way. And I think that is bringing the collectives, approved collectives, under the umbrella of the universities who are in the elite conferences of the new league when it all forms. And there are 24 teams in the Big Ten, 24 teams in the SEC. They have divisions, and they eventually have a Supreme Bowl, shall we say.
Yeah, that works. Good title. Billy D will run you down this weekend. Thanks for going a little OT with us today.
Absolutely. I'm going to go trademark that right now. Have a good weekend.
Bill, always thinking. I love it. Pride of Fairbury, Bill Doleman, NBC
future
Sports.
Millionaire with his copyright.
Yes. Future multi-millionaire. Bill, be good, buddy. Appreciate you.
Hey, boys.
There he is. Bill Doleman, Pride of Fairbury, NBC Sports, at Bill Doleman on Twitter. And we're getting title suggestions in the stream from the other Brian. Crew is going to hit up his bag man. So he says, Brent says, Collar's Gone Wild. And we should sell this show specifically for $19.99. Yes, that's pretty funny. But we will have the Friday forecast on the way. We're going to attempt Clauseborne.
Bill is doing something in the green room. I'm not quite sure what he's doing. He said, does he want to come back in the show here? He's got a big old box of files.
He's getting the shredder ready. That's pretty good.
He's going Trumpet Mar-a-Lago.
Or pick political figure, right? So we'll dive in to the Friday forecast. Some really big-time college basketball. But you just love this atmosphere downtown Lincoln, the Haymarket, the Rail Yard. It's PBA. It's going to be great weather this weekend. You've got semifinal action tonight and the battle of the Metros, right? You've got Omaha's top squad still remaining and surviving. That is Bellevue West and Millard West. They'll tip off tonight. You have Millard West against Lincoln North Star. The Gators right now warming up in front of me here courtside at PBA. And then Lincoln Southwest against Bellevue West at 7:45. Elijah will be on that call. I'll be on that call locally at KFOR. Tough, our friends and affiliate at 590 Omaha's ESPN, your home for Husker football and baseball. A little rain delay that's turned into cancellation today, so no Nebraska baseball. Hopefully they can get the second game of that series in tomorrow. If you're a Nebraska baseball fan, we've got a stream listener that was headed down that way.
That was Eric.
Yep, Eric. That's NASCAR Eric, correct?
Yes, it is.
NASCAR Eric, who always checks in with us, Eric Fear. I hope he's all right with me calling him NASCAR Eric. Always find the show Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, Hail Varsity YouTube. Can watch the show that way. Follow us on Twitter at HVarsity Radio. Friday forecast, Clauseborne on the way with Hail Varsity, powered by Cornhead Lager.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Thanks for hanging out. Hail Varsity, powered by Cornhead Lager. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. We're here courtside at PBA Girls State 2024. The game one of the Class A semifinals about 14 minutes away or so. Locally in Lincoln, you can hear that KFORnow.com with Connor Clark, Tim Bob Kitzmiller. Elijah, well done, good sir, as you're able to run down the man that's imaginary and he wears red for the Friday forecast. It is Clauseborne with us on a Friday. Claus, how we doing? Good to spend some time with you.
Well, I'm doing okay. I want to use my opportunity, and I never do this, but a good friend of mine, Jacob, who is a regular, well, I should say occasional listener of this segment, which aren't we all, had a baby this week, so wanted to congratulate him. Named it Eli after the New York football great. I said, well, at least you didn't name it Orenthal. And he said, yeah, that would have been a killer name, but
wow,
we went with Eli. So congratulations to Jacob and welcome to the fandom, Eli.
Now, could Eli, is it Eli for short for Elijah?
Well, I'm fairly sure he wouldn't name him after his 15th favorite radio host, but I suppose that's possible.
That's so good.
That wasn't necessary.
At least you got one in the face this time, Elijah. Okay, Claus, before we get to our Friday forecast, what do you think about Brian Ferentz visiting Nebraska's coaching staff this week, coaching football officers? And I know Bill Belichick's visiting here for the coaches clinic, which is great. That being said, Big Brian has got some time on his hands. What do you make of it?
Well, I know Matthew and Anthony, our defensive coordinator, are trying to find ways to keep offenses from scoring, and nobody knows anything more about offenses that don't score than Brian Ferentz, so I think it might work out in our favor.
That works well. Without further ado, let's get to the picks this weekend, the Friday forecast, on to college basketball. So Kansas has been an absolute mess since they won and covered pretty impressively against Houston. KU now at Baylor. The Bears minus 4.5. KU 3-5. On the road this year for a 2-seed number 7. Iowa State's moved up to that 2 line in many projections. I'm going to go with Baylor. Baylor was good enough, but not long enough against Houston in overtime at home. I think they get the win at home in Waco this weekend, and I think they cover the number. Give me Baylor by 8, 68-60. KU's just got to figure it out. This is a KU team you're not going to buy in the NCAA tournament and watch them put a run together. Elijah, what do you say?
Yeah, my thing with KU is they're solidly into the tournament. I wonder about the care factor. Baylor's playing in front of the home fans here. I think that gives them a little added care factor. I think they win. I don't know if they cover. I still think KU's a good basketball program, despite the fact that the results haven't always been there this season. I'm going to take Baylor to win, but no cover. I think the Jayhawks cover 4.5, and I think it's a 70-67 game.
Claus, what say you? Are you going with KU or are you going with Baylor?
Well, I'll be honest with you, fellas. I don't know a whole lot about either of these two teams this year, but I do know historically Baylor has had to cover up their biggest program secrets with shady figures, espionage, and a little bit of conspiracy, whereas Kansas has had to cover up their biggest problems in the program with the toupee. So I'm going to take the Jayhawks to cover, but not win. It's going to be Baylor 71 and Kansas 69.
I was waiting for some sort of caress shout out, but it's okay. You did it.
Well, both Lawrence and Waco have been invaded by outside factors. Lawrence got burned down, and Waco's been a joke for 30 years, so you decide who wins that way.
Clauseborne with us here on Hail Varsity Radio. Marquette is at Creighton. Creighton minus 4.5. Another chance for the Jays to take down a top 10 program. They took UConn down less than a week ago. Then they lost to Slick Rick and the Godfather 2 tribute suit last Saturday. I think Creighton gets it done. Creighton's been playing good ball. Sounds like things are going appropriately so for Coach Mack and the extension. Give me the Jays 78 and a little payback to Marquette, 78-65. Jays roll tomorrow at CHI. Elijah.
Yeah, Creighton already got this game whenever they were on the road at Marquette. I think they get another win this time around. Creighton's a good basketball program. I think they got a little too much offense for Marquette. It was 72-67, if memory serves me correctly, the first time around. I think Creighton can put up a few more points than that this time around. I got Creighton 80, Marquette 69, a winning cover for the Jays.
Claus, you going Creighton or you going Marquette?
Well, far be it from me to ever offer any advice to Creighton or their fan base, but I think they got a chance in this one if they can get inside Marquette's head. I think the best way to do it is to make a sign that says, "Hey, Tyler Korick, read these words, fish, pony, hip-hop anonymous," and he won't hit a shot all night. Creighton will roll 72 and Marquette 65.
And that is a joke about how Colett cannot read? Is that, yes?
I think so.
Yeah,
Tennessee is at Bama. We'll say pick 'em. Bama's been resurgent from their start to the year. Tennessee's been top 5, barring kind of a weird home loss to South Carolina, who's projected in the tournament. I'll say pick 'em. Tennessee hates Bama. Bama hates Tennessee. At one time, Phil Fulmer could not get out of Alabama quick enough. He had to get to the state line. Otherwise, he'd have been prosecuted for, well, winning a recruiting battle in the world of football. But I think Bama stings Tennessee. I like the home court. I like Coach Oates. And give me Bama 75-70 over Rocky Top. Elijah.
Yeah, I like Bama here. Again, as I kind of said before, a lot of it this year comes down to who wants it more. I think Bama with NCAA tournament seeding might have a little more to play for here. I got them winning this one 82-79.
Claus, what do you say, Tennessee or Bama?
Well, usually when you think Tennessee and Bama, you think third Saturday in October, not first weekend in March. In fact, the first weekend in March in Tennessee and Alabama usually just involves looking very nervously at all the pregnant sheep. So this is going to be a difficult weekend for them, but I think Alabama pulls it off. Very close game, 71 and the Volunteers 69.
Claus, you got time for one more on the other side, Nebraska and Rutgers. Are you okay for a quick timeout? We'll come back with you.
Okay.
All right, Claus will wrap up the Friday forecast. We're courtside here at PBA, and locally we'll have Millard West ready to go against Lincoln North Star. Connor Clark, Tim Bob Kitzmiller locally on KFOR will wind down a Friday edition of Hail Varsity Forecast. Nebraska Rutgers selection next.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time, Hail Varsity powered by Cornhead Lager. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. Courtside here at PBA. Let's get back to the Friday forecast as North Star is out of the locker room. A loud roar by the student section and all the fans here to see girls high school basketball state semis 2024. So I'm going to say the line's 5.5, 6.5. That might feel low, but that's what it's kind of been the last couple home games. And I think Nebraska wins. I think it's a rock fight. I think Rutgers slaps Nebraska around a little bit, but I think Nebraska responds and finds a way and gets some payback. 68-60, barely a cover for Nebraska, a little too close on a Sunday evening for Nebraska basketball fans, but it's a win. You get to win number 21. Give me the Big Red, and barely a cover, but some good momentum before the off week in front of Michigan. Elijah.
I think Fred Hoiberg and Nebraska, the whole team, is going to be pretty PO'd based on that result from Thursday against Ohio State last night. I think they come out and I think they slap Rutgers around just a little bit. They need that extra motivation. Or they don't need the extra motivation, but I think they have it considering they lost to Rutgers the first time around and considering what happened last night. I'm going to take Nebraska to win it and to win it big. Give me Nebraska 74 and Rutgers 60. As Schmidt pauses for the national anthem, let's send it to Claus. Claus, what do you have Nebraska-Rutgers on Sunday evening?
Well, this is obviously a game that Nebraska's got to have for their postseason purposes, and I suppose the more fatalistic amongst the Nebrasketball fan base is probably so tensed up that they could produce a diamond if we shoved a lump of coal up their posterior. But this game is being played at home, and quite honestly, I can't respect a team, school, program that calls itself Rutgers. I mean, it sounds like an old-timey gastrointestinal disease, like I ate way too much gabagool after the Springsteen concert last night, and now I got a bad case of the Rutgers. So I think Nebraska wins this one. I don't think it's particularly close toward the end. Nebraska 81 and Rutgers 69.
There he is, Clauseborne making his predictions here on another Friday forecast of Hail Varsity Radio. As we welcome Schmidt back to the show. Schmidt, you have any final thoughts for Claus before we say goodbye?
Claus, I'm a big gabagool guy, but well played, sir. Have a great weekend, and thanks for joining us.
Okay.
There he goes. He's imaginary. He wears red. It is Clauseborne and the Friday forecast. Elijah, we're going to get it turned over to Connor and Tim Bob locally here as we break away. But don't forget the weekend edition of Hail Varsity tomorrow, 7:45. Can catch that on the Hail Varsity YouTube channel. Subscribe, like, tell a friend, and big high five to Elijah Herbel for getting the Spotify issue fixed with the podcast.
Yeah, so if you were having issues, we let off the show with that. Issue has been resolved. All the episodes are up on Spotify this week, so if that applies to you, we apologize for the inconvenience. We thank you for your patience, and you are able to listen to Schmidt and myself on Spotify yet again with Hail Varsity Radio.
Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, where you can download us. Follow us at HVarsity Radio on Twitter, at Herbal Essence, at Schmidt_Radio and, of course, the Hail Varsity YouTube channel. Big thanks to Bill Doleman. Big thanks to Jacob Padilla. Big thanks to Tim Barada of Lincoln Southwest. And thanks, as always, to Claus. We'll talk to you manana, 7:45, weekend edition tomorrow morning. For Elijah Schmidt, we'll talk to you tomorrow on Hail Varsity, powered by Cornhead Lager.